Welcome back to another fashion show. I'm Jacob from Jacob Books Corner, and today we're talking about my top 10 best books of the year of 2023, and also my most surprising book of the year as well. We'll start there. I'd like to mention my most surprising book is a 4. A lot of my 5 stars this year, I'd like 35 stars are on this list, of course. I only picked 5 stars, but I did want to put my most surprising as a book that truly was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this or not. And I went with Gideon the Ninth by Tasman Maria, I think is how you pronounce it, the first book in the Locked Tombs series. I think there's more than 3 now. I think there might be 4. I would love to reread Gideon the Ninth. I do have plans on maybe reviewing that entire series, rereading it in that video, and getting a new perspective and continuing onwards in that series, as I adored Gideon the Ninth. I think even in that video, on the 5 sci-fi video that I did earlier this year, I even said, oh my god, this very well could be a 5-star, but it needs like 6 or 7 more rereads on it. And so I'm really hoping that the more rereads, the better it's going to be. That video, by the way, conjured 2 books for this video. So that was a good one. I recommend it. I'll link it. That was a good overall. I just love sci-fi. That was like a big take away that I had this year. Sci-fi is great. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about my top 10 best books of 2023. All these books I would recommend, hands down, and I'll link you to any videos I talk about them in, if I have any videos. Or if there's a video coming up that I talk about them in, I'll also shout out that video here. I'd like to mention today is December 20th when I'm filming this, and that means I still have about 11 more days for a 5-star or a favorite book to pop up. If that's the case, sorry guys, you guys missed the deadline. I don't know if I'll count these books for next year's deadline, like maybe I'll look back in December being like, oh, that book was definitely a 5. Probably not. I read about 200 books a year, so I definitely have enough books to choose from. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about top 10 from December 20th. So the number 10 is Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. This is a story of revenge of 2 fathers, one black man and one white man. Their sons were married. They were taking offense to that. They didn't like the fact that their sons were the one they eventually had a child. These sons were murdered, and these 2 dads get together to reenact revenge on the people who murdered their sons and find solace in the whole thing. A part of this book that was so beautiful, one, was that it was a thrill ride. Yeah, I keep recommending like John Wick and stuff because I think that's what it reminded me of most, and I've never read a book kind of like John Wick before, so that was amazing. I also like all the conversations about race, queer identity in different races. Also the conversation overall of what the book like covers. I don't know, I articulate my thoughts much better in the video that I did when I covered it. I also covered S.A. Cosby and the reason why he made the book, and I think that just enhances everything much better, so I'll link you over there. That video needs some love, so please go watch. That being said, let's move on to number 9. Number 9 was Skyward by Brendan Sanderson. I read this for my 5 sci-fi video. That's what I read it for. So I was a girl who her dad is counted as a traitor in the beginning of the novel, and she ends up getting into fight school, which she doesn't think she'll be able to defend the planet from these like monsters, and it's about this whole thing, and it's beautiful. I loved it. It was a 5-star read. Didn't think it was going to be a 5-star read, if I'm going to be honest with you. It truly was. Like, it was like, wow. I have the rest of the series sitting on my shelf over there, and I do plan on covering the rest of the series in a singular video. I don't know if I'm going to reread Skyward and then read the rest of the series. I'm not entirely sure, so let me know in the comments down below. Would you guys like me to summarize my thoughts and opinions on Skyward in a non-spoilery or in a spoilery fashion, or reread it and then reread the rest of the series? That's a video for next year, so you guys have time to decide on how you guys want that to be done. I just love the writing. I love the battles. I love the characters. The main character was phenomenal, and I just had such a fun time. It was a nice and easy sci-fi read, which was very much needed. Number 8 on the list is Pretty Boys Are Poisonous by Megan Fox. This is a book of poems about her relationship with Colson Baker, with a few other people, but mostly about Colson Baker, which is MGK, if you guys did not know. Megan Fox is obviously the goddess. Jennifer fucking Body. I'm sorry. Jennifer fucking Check. I love her to death. She's like one of my favorite actresses of all time. This was everything. This was everything I ever wanted. There's some beautiful artwork, and also I recommend the physical copy. It is quite expensive, so I understand, but I recommend going and looking at it at least once if you do end up reading it. It's like this beautiful hardback finish. I can't really speak too much to the poems, except that they're beautifully written, and I think they are handled, and also the audiobook is done so well. It just deals with some very, very dark and heavy topics, but I think she does such a good job. I can't wait to reread it in the new year, and I will surely be doing that. That will not be popping in a video at all. I read that for fun. This book will be popping up a video that originally was supposed to come out in December, but there's just too many books for me to wrap up, and so it'll actually be coming out in early January, and that is covering my 2023 the books I should have read in 2023 video. That one being Emily Henry's Happy Place is a part of that video. This was a 5-star. Another Emily Henry for the win. She's becoming an all-time favorite author, like, so quickly, so fast. This is the 4th Emily Henry I read. I have one more before the newest one comes out, so we'll figure out what to do in the new year. We have to talk about it here. Happy Place follows Harriet and Wynn as they go back to like a childhood like beach home that they have like with all their friends, and they are currently broken up from their engagement and they have to stay kind of together and fake the relationship. We also get how they met and their relationship as well. I just think the dynamic was perfect and I felt like the friendship was great. Also, there's a scene where they all get stoned is all I'll say, and it was the best thing I read. One of the best things I read this year. That was without a doubt, a 5-star. Number 6 comes in as Mayfly by CJ Lead. I talked about this book quite a bit over these last few videos. This was in my 5 extreme horror novels. A lot of people didn't like this book when I read it, so I don't think I'm in the minority of being someone who enjoys this novel, as it does tend to have a high like a Goodreads score. To go into it knowing that it's a slow extreme horror, it doesn't pop off the bat with like graphic violence and gratuitous sex and like all the good things that extreme horror normally has. This one is a very much more softer one, as I would call it, but I would also classify it as extreme horror. It's just light extreme horror. This one follows Mayfly as she works at a place that's kind of like Disney, that's basically Disney, but they can't tag like Disney in it. She also has these dark tendencies that she wants to act on people, but she's trying her hardest. She ends up meeting a guy who maybe has those same exact tendencies, and it's kind of about the relationship, but also exploring these dark thoughts. Things people compare it to American Psycho. I don't necessarily agree with that statement, but it's very commonly like linked together. Yeah, for the extreme horror, it really pops in for the last like 20 or so %. Outside of that, there's like 1 or 2 scenes that were shocking, but nothing that I feel like went over. And I also think the extreme horror elements of the book also don't go so far. I think possibly it's because I was so desensitized by the time I got to the end of this book, so who knows? But I loved it. Nonetheless, it was amazing. That being said, our top 5 novels of the year were kind of hard to choose from. They all were books that were just, oh my god. Alright, I can't stop reading about them. I couldn't stop reading about them all year, and so they definitely had to make the high part of this list. That being said, number 5 would be Fina by Nina Capri. This follows a couple that have broken up who have to go on this portal fantasy journey for their job, which is kind of funny. It's an exploration of relationship, but also queer identity and things like that. Also fun, like workplace hijinks. The story itself is really, really funny because it's about these 2 people who work at like a normal like 9, like a Walgreens or something, or maybe like more like a Walmart or something along those lines. I think someone mentioned like a TJ Maxx. You get the point. Something in that kind of sales type of place. In the back of the store, there's a portal to an alternate dimensions, like so many different dimensions and stuff like that. And a grandma ends up getting sucked into one, and so they are like tasked as like a job task to go hunt her down and find her and bring her back. And it's just so funny to me that's like what their job task is. It was such a quirky but also fun, and I loved how the author like really tied in all the different things that they wanted to say in the book, and they did it so beautifully. I know that it's the first book in a series, but I also don't know if I want to read more, so I'm really excited to figure out if I can find more from this author that's not a part of the series, because even though I think the ending is controversial, I don't think everybody's gonna like it. For me personally, I love the ending. That being said, moving on to book number 4. Book number 4 is Keenan Ash by Sarah J. Maas. What can I say? I'm a sucker, okay? This was a 5-star. I posted like an hour-long video talking about it. The battle sequence that takes place about halfway through this novel lives rent-free in my mind. The amount of times I think about that battle, the amount of times I picture that battle, the amount of times I want to see that battle in live action is ridiculous. It's such a high amount that I'm so mad no one has picked it up yet. But I can't decide if I want like a TV show like Game of Thrones or if I want like a movie series like Lord of the Rings. Who knows? But one day I do hope to see this story on TV screen. The first book, which is called Throne of Glass, is about Aileen as she is tasked to become the king's champion to play in these games, and there's like all our political stuff. This takes place 8 books later, and it's beautiful. It's everything. I loved it so much. So much. I'm also so excited to reread it without having the pressure of documenting my process. I'm happy that I did that, but oh, there was pressure. Speaking of another video that I did. I mean, my entire top 4 is documented. I'll link all the videos down below of me talking about them in either a non-spoilery or spoilery fashion. Most of them are ASMR spoiler leak, but it's fine. We have Chain of Thorns for number 4, or number 3 by Cassandra Clare. No one's shocked that Cassandra Clare is on here. I think people are shocked that it's so far down the list, but we're dealing with sequels. Like a lot of these books that towards the top of the list are sequels. Sequels are hard. Sequels are dependent on the characters, depending on where the story goes, depending on how well the author handles the subject matter or the themes, or how well, like, it's done, okay? This was a great sequel. It was a great ending to this series. It's not satisfying, okay? It's not. I talk about in this video. That video is an hour and 41 minutes. Please go check it out. Maybe skip around a little. I don't know, but go check it out, okay? It's so long. Please, it took me forever to edit. But with Chain of Thorns in particular, this is a book that you have to go read extra novellas to like truly get the satisfaction of the ending, which is fine. Those stories were already written. We got answers to questions I didn't even know I had questions to. So it's perfectly fine, but I feel bad for the average viewer who doesn't read novellas, who I do recommend the novellas to go read in the order to read them at the end of this video. So like, if you want to know, I have a place for you. It's just one of those things, okay? I still loved it. It was still perfect, but that's the reason why it's number 3. I feel like I needed to fight it because like Cassandra Clare is like basically my personality on this channel. It's still really good, guys. And I'm even pushing off Swordcatcher, which has been out since like September, to read next year just for the chance that Cassandra Clare could be on a top 10 again. Still love my girl. These next two, okay? I thought in my head so much on where is it going to be? Is it going to be number 1? Is it going to be number 2? Is it going to be 1? Number 2. I feel like tomorrow this list could change and my top 2 could flip. Okay, I feel like everything else is pretty solid, but these top 2, I promise you, flip often. Number 2 coming in as Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. One of the best sequels I've ever read in my entire life. It's the second book in the Indian Curse trilogy or Indian Lake trilogy. I can't remember which one it's called. The first one being My Heart is a Chainsaw. That one follows Jade as she believes that she is living through a slasher. This is the events 4 years after. The next book takes place 4 years after these events. This is everything I ever wanted and more in a slasher novel. It's everything I ever wanted and more into a sequel. It really just proved that a sequel to a slasher can be good. Thank you so much, Stephen Graham Jones. That's all I gotta say. You bless me. And I've been so tempted to reread it here lately just because I want to experience the story again. But I am holding off. I am waiting until the 3rd book comes out and I'm going to read all 3 back to back and it's going to be beautiful and I can't fucking wait. And then my number 1 book of the year. My number 1 book, okay? Like, what was the best book I read this year? Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. I'm sorry. It's true. I had not read anything as good as these 2 books. Okay, obviously these are all 5 stars. These are all phenomenal. These are all part of a series. Most of these are part of a series. Most of these blew my mind. Hellbent was spiritual. It was out of my body amazing. And I can't even tell you why. That's the crazy thing about sequels, like the second book in a series. Like, if they hit, they fucking go nuts. If they don't hit, you know. Like, you know right away, this is not a good sequel. Maybe the next book would be a good sequel, so you'll continue on a series. But when both books, like, that's the thing. With both of these series, like Alex Stern, which is what this is, Ninth House, the first book in the series, or the last one, both the first books hit. And so normally the second book doesn't, because the first book already has so much expectations on it, because the first book was so good, right? The second book, bam, hit. So much harder. It's so crazy. Hellbent did everything I ever wanted. The only thing I would have to say, if I had to say anything, maybe the relationship needs to move a little faster. That's my only note. I don't know how long this book series is. Originally, I think it was supposed to be 5. Now I think it's 3. But I think that might have changed back to 5. I don't know. But I can promise you this much. I'm super, super excited to continue on. Whenever Leigh Bardugo hands me a new book, I will be there. I will read it day 1. Do not get me wrong. But of course, in the comments, please let me know what your top 10 books are, or your number 1 book is, any honorable mentions, anything like that. How did you guys do reading this year? I feel like my reading overall was really, really good. I'll talk about more of that, or I've already talked about that in my goals video, because this video will come out later. I'm filming this before I film my goals video. Alright, I'll talk to you guys all very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.